Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining this edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at the topic, the HR mindset. The HR mindset. Our facilitator is Tommy Kemby, and is an HR professional with over 5 years of experience in retail, consulting, hospitality, and renewable energy industries. Is a specialist in performance management, learning and development, compensation and benefits, career coaching, and organizational structure design. He began his career as an HR generalist in the hospitality industry before taking a career break, during which he honed his skills in L&D, focusing on addressing stakeholder pain points. Subsequently to this, he joined consulting industry as an HR VP and training consultant. At the moment, he's HR manager of Blue Wave New Energy Technology, a renewable energy company. He has a BSc and will probably tell us in what field, and he is passionate about helping industries and organizations within industries, develop their talent pool and reducing their attrition rate. Speaking to us on the topic, HR mindset, let's welcome Tony Kemby. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again, sir, for the privilege to be here once again. I do not take it for granted. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to everyone that also joined and participated. I also want to use this opportunity to urge us that we should not just participate casually. We should try to pay rapt attention. I'm just going to be speaking to the heart of what we have chosen to work with, which is HR. Before I start proper, I want to also appreciate learners and most importantly facilitators. It takes a lot to want to put your art out there and say you want to convert a slide. It's not an easy work and it's really a great fit. So let me just delve into why this topic while I'm presenting the table of contents. So over the years and from my observations with the diverse HR groups that I've joined and that I converse with and I understudy, I realized that most times, most of us here just transitioned into HR without being properly prepared for it. Please give me a minute. I'm sorry. Please give me a minute. This is about that. Calls were coming in, so I was trying to meet it off. So it's not just us, right? It is basically because, especially in Nigeria, I realized that we mostly delve into things that we are not adequately prepared for. So, for example, even if you studied HR as a course in school, for which I'm very sure most of us didn't, even if you studied HR as a course in school, none of you can beat your chest to say that the things you learned in school are the things you met in the workplace. Meaning that the people teaching us in school, even the people who are in the HR field, came in through trial and errors, right? And they are just trying to just navigate their way through HR. And even with that, not all of them have actually decided to take that back seat to sit down, to observe their journey over time, to say that they want to now bring out a course material or bring out a training material that they would use to mentor people who are coming behind. And the truth is, mentorship is very, very important, not just in our scope of work, not just in our field, but in every sphere of life. Because the purpose of mentorship is that there are people who have gone ahead and they are helping people who are coming from behind. So this is the reason why I decided to address this topic, the HR mindset. So today we are just going to be, I made it as short as possible. It's not about too much talk, it's about speaking to the heart and about us really getting to understand why we are feeling what we are feeling and know that it is fine, it is totally fine, and you're not the only one in this space. We are many in it, right? So today we are going to be talking about the misconception about HR and preparing for the HR profession. Those are the two key things I'm just going to be addressing today. And today's focus is to help you understand the realistic challenges and ethical dilemma that HR professionals face. It is also to help you prepare for the emotional, relational, and strategic complexities of the work in HR, right? To also help you understand the importance of that soft skill called resilience, discretion, and continuous learning, even as you thrive in HR, right? And those are the three key things focus majorly on. Now, let's have a brief introduction. How did HR even come to be? Or what is it about HR? Why is HR the way HR is? So, one of the first misconceptions that we have, and one of the major challenge that we have in HR, is the fact that because it is a career with different faces, right? It has faced a lot of scrutiny. And I'm going to relate it to my course, business administration. So when I was going for business administration, one of the regular conversation or regular word I was hearing is that course is an Ashero course. Like that course does not have any bearing. It just speaks a little of every course. It speaks a little of accounting, it speaks a little of economics, a little of marketing, just speaks little there, here and there, and just combines it together and calls it business administration. And for most of those courses, they've decided to become a standalone. So some people feel like, so why do you still need business administration if most of those courses are a standalone? And HR is just like that, right? It has different aspects of the discipline. And because of that, it has faced a lot of scrutiny about its relevance, especially because it seems like anybody can do the role. You know, some people be like, what is so special about HR? I don't know why you people even carry HR on your head. What's the big deal about HR? I mean, I can do HR. Is it not just to hire people, just sit down, speak to key and core things, and that is it. And whilst I appreciate that those basic things can be done by any and everybody, it doesn't mean that HR is for any and everybody. In fact, to make matters more interesting, right, a lot of people who are professionals have transitioned into HR. I mean, whilst I was at our induction conference last week, we had cases of people. In fact, the best graduating student is a lawyer, and she transitioned into HR. Now, what I'm not sure of is if she took the HR professional course and certification as something to add as an add-on skill, or if she truly wants to shift into HR. But that's not the focus, right? The focus is this: the evolution of HR, especially as we see it play out, has made it seem like anybody can do HR, right? Especially because the first set of people that did things that seem to look like HR, right, did it from a position of power. The people that subjected to them out of fear. The people that subjected to them out of fear, and because they have no choice. Let me give a typical these people do. They brought out tax collectors from amongst us to make sure that we pay taxes to them, right? Let me carry that and put it in a typical tradition. This is what we want to do. HR, make sure that everybody follows it. Do we see the balance? Do we see the correlation? But does that mean that is all HR is? about? The answer is no. People always forget that HR does, right? Or the reality of HR that people always forget about is the fact that when you are dealing with people, you are not just dealing with people, you are dealing with people with free will. So in today's world, they've emphasized that we are dealing with people, but free will has been silent. We are dealing with people, but free will, I feel like, okay, everybody in this organization must subject. They have no voice of their own. HR, we are there to ensure that they subject to what we want. Free will is out of the place. Free will is totally out of place. So, and because of that, it is the reason why there is a lot of misunderstanding and misconception about what HR is and why and how HR should be treated. So it is easy to design a machine. In fact, it is easy to it is even easier, yes, say, bringing people to a point where it seems like they feel like they are the one making the decisions as we are actually the one driving it. You know, this like he's doing something out of his free will, but you are the one influencing his decision. Of HR. Because of how HR came to be and how people think HR still is, it is the reason why there has been a lot of global misconceptions held by both HR professionals and perception in many organizations. Now, before I address it, that's the reason why you would see people who come into some HR spaces talk about I have this issue in my organization. And then the first response they are getting from people is, almost as if technical know-how of being an HR. Because trust me, even if soft skills seem to be optional in every other field, right? Our soft skill is our technical skill in HR. Let me take that again. Our soft skill is our technical skill in HR. While soft skill may not matter in other, what's the word now? In other professions, it is extremely important for us. Why? Because it is strong soft skills that helps you drive people. So let's look at some of the misconceptions we already know about. So I'm not going to flog it so much. I'm just going to pick out certain things. I've already highlighted two out of these things, right? The fact that, a lot of people just feel like, HR is just about hiring and firing. In HR, should we hire people, fire people? Bring HR, let's do it. So why do we need an HR person? Is it just to hire and fire? And then you sit at tables, and even when you're interviewing someone, and the person was like, so I've worked as the HR for my organization. It was being hired for a sales manager, and it was like, I've worked as the HR of the organization. I prepared policies. I do this. I do that. See, all those things are basics, right? They are just foundations. They are just the basis of HR, no matter how technical it is. The most technical part of HR is managing people into compliance. That is the most technical part of HR. You are now very blessed. No, let me say otherwise. Right? Now very blessed if the people you are managing are semi-skilled or semi-literate. That is when every aspect of the soft skills will be tested, right? HR as a function, especially when it comes to the function of the equipment, and due to the fact that that function requires a lot of collaboration, is one of the reasons why a lot of people think that HR is easy to be done and anybody can do HR. And that's the reason why it's not just wire and fire, but HR is more than that. It is also the reason why people feel like, What is HR? Anybody can do HR now, but they keep forgetting that at the core of HR, you need a little of law, you need a little of psychology, you need a lot of people management, you need a lot of change leadership. I've been in situations whereby there are certain things and certain actions that employers would want you to take, and you're trying to advise them that, sir, please, we can't do it this way. Because it's in violation. I am here to ensure compliance across board. It has to be my business. Having said that, let me borrow a line that our guest speaker said. HR has no confinement. HR is truly jack of all trades and master of none. It has no line. You cannot restrict HR. These are the realities of HR. So you can't be in an organization and just sit in a place and say, "Oh, I just want to focus on L&D recruitment." No, it's not done. You know why? For you to be better at the things you are doing at your core function at HR, you need to have a base knowledge of what is happening in the environment. You need to have a base knowledge of what's happening in the company. You need to have a base knowledge of what is happening in the different departments. I mean, if you are saying that you want to take trainings for people in engineering, how would you be able to take that training? How would you be able to prepare for that training if you don't even know the basic requirements or basic foundational words and basic foundational know-how for the engineering? Which brings me to one of the things I need to address here, that being an HR person, you must be ready to learn technical things. So even if you are never a science student, if you are working in an organization that is scientific, make no mistake, you become a science student, right? Now, one of the major misconceptions is also the part of, oh, HR is just the management's puppet. Oh, we want to do something, just send HR. Oh, it is sad. But at the core of everything, the things that most of us have already come to realize, but that most employees may never realize and for which you can never advocate to them, is the fact that other employees. And so, just like how the primary focus of every other employee is self-preservation, as an HR person, please do not be apologetic because you want to preserve your job. Let me take that again. As an HR person, please do not be apologetic because you want to preserve your job. The best you can do is that if you foresee issues ahead of time, in the most tactful way as possible, try to coach the person, try to advise the person, try to guide the person towards averting that issue in a diplomatic way as much as possible. But don't do it at the expense of losing your job. Don't do it at the expense of losing your job. Because when you do, the same employees that you are trying to protect, one or two things may happen. The protection that you are trying to do may become useless. They will still sack the person. What's not the essence of losing your job? That's number one. Number two, even though I know that most of us took the oath and the creed of that, even if resignation is an option, it should be explored. One of the things we need to also understand is that our body is still a growing body. We've achieved many great feats, and I'm going to even give it to CIPM on that. It takes a lot to come into collaboration with CIPD. From the induction, they also told us that they've come into some form of partnership with Canada, and they are still building that partnership and collaboration to do as an organization, as a body. What is that? Until when our body can become strong enough to a point whereby, in a way, right, they can hire all the old HR in Nigeria and then outsource all the HRs to organizations. And then HRs are seen as organizational body and as consultant. Until we get to that point, for as long as these employers have it at the back of their mind that, oh, they are paying your salary, okay, you are still there to please them. The only thing you can just do is be diplomatic about pleasing them and ensure that in doing that, you are not violating ethics, you are not violating policies, and you are not searing your conscience, right? Now, what are the other mistakes I run head on, right? But my main focus is the perception and the preparation of our heart into HR, because most of us stumbled into HR. Most of us are facing certain things, and it seems like, man, this HR is not for me. Maybe it is for you. Maybe it's just that you're not prepared for it. It's just like being thrown into the water and expected to swim. But then I'm hoping that by the end of this conversation, you'll have more confidence and you'll be strongly encouraged to push on, right? So, yeah, some other misconceptions. Oh, we're all about soft skills, we lack data, we don't drive revenue, we're a cost center. Um, Small startup companies don't really need us. And so because they feel they don't need us, they would have caused a lot of issues, right? They would have caused a lot of issues from scratch. We now have to start correcting issues. But my focus is not in the misconceptions. We all know these misconceptions, right? What am I coming here to talk to us about? For some of us, or rather most of us, we may be coming into HR for the first time. Most of us may be starters. Some of us might have grown in this HR field. And even in our depth in HR, sometimes we need these words just to strengthen our conviction and serve as a strength to push us forward, which is what? Now, let me come into preparing for the HR profession. Number one, you are a lone ranger. You are a lone ranger. And I feel like this is something that should begin to be emphasized even from the university. See, if you are coming into HR because you are a people person, let me start by saying that you failed, because you'll realize that when you come into HR, it is not about the people, it is about the system you are building. So, having said that, let me emphasize it this way. HR is not for the employer. HR is not for the employee. HR is for the system. However, if you are in an organization, because 95% of companies in Nigeria are owned by one man, right? If you are in an organization where the employer is the system, HR is for the employer. Let me take that again. Standardly, HR is not for the employer, HR is not for the employee, HR is for the system, because we are expected to come to sit down to look at what the system needs at every point in time. And for us to be able to do that, it means that we should know everything about the business. To be able to create a, we need to understand that our role is to always have the system's impact at heart, right? The best of the system at heart. Now, whilst that may not always be the case, if you are working for a one-man business, who is the employer, make no mistake, you are working for the employer at that point, because the employer is the system. You would only be lucky if the employer is as exposed as you are, and the employer is willing, or the employer has grown to a point where he can separate himself from the system. But until it comes to that point, the employer is the system, and the employer pays your bills. Bills will not wait for you. So you need to work and try as much as possible to align with the employer. All it just means is that as you work with the employer, you need to now learn to wear the diplomatic cap more, such that even when the employer creates policies and the employer wants to break those policies, you tactfully try to bring the employer back to alignment. So you need to be tactful, right? You need to be tactful. The second, everybody is against you. Let me put it there. HR is nobody's friend. Everybody is against you. They are only your friend when they need you. They are only your friend when they need you. So don't think you can have a friend. You can't have a friend. The system, you are the system. The system has no emotions, right? You can't have a friend. You can only have empathy to try to understand reasons for delay in results. But your job is to drive results. This is one thing you need to learn. This is one thing you need to embody, especially if you want to sit at the performance aspect of HR. You are a system. You lack emotions. It is just like the law profession, whereby you know that statue that is blind holding the scale and the sword. What does it say? It says that justice is blind and only fair, right? You are the system. You are blind to emotions, but you have empathy. You are blind to emotions, but you have empathy. There's a very thin line, but that line exists. What does that mean? The reason why that system exists is to grow. For the system to grow, there has to be results. For results to happen, there has to be compliance, and people must comply with policies and processes. Your job is to ensure that people comply to those things. Because if they are not complying to those things, there is no way the system will make money and pay all of you salary. So you can't afford to be emotional about results. Be hard on people when it is needed, and be friends or be smiley at them when it is important. So let me re-emphasize that again. You can't have friends as HR. Nobody's your friend. You are a system. You are empathetic, but you are not emotional. What is the third one? You will be expected to fix problems you did not create. You know why? Because people still see us as damage control. People still see us as damage control. After the CEO, we are the one that have the worst of the jobs in the organization. You know why? Because the true proof of productivity is that everybody is performing, meaning that our job is to make sure that everybody performs before we perform. And to a very large extent, 70% of people's performance is what is used to rate our performance, even when that is not the reality. So our job will suffer just because we want others to succeed. So our job is just like that of a coach or a lecturer in school, whereby he goes through the rigor, he's paid stupid salaries, low salaries, just to make sure that the students succeed and go and start earning in 7 figures and any rich. But he will still keep getting that same small salary. And you'll probably even be forgotten. Don't take it personal. It is the reality of the calling that you have come into, right? So be ready to get your hands dirty. If you are not ready to get your hands dirty, or if you are not ready to remind yourself that I came to this job to keep getting my hands dirty, then HR is not for you. What else? Most times, if you are not careful, your career growth, even in the organization, might be neglected. And the reality is this: most times, except in extremely structured organizations, most times the best way we grow as HR is by changing jobs. And so that is the reason why it is almost difficult for you to see, as we are evolving, right? For you to see HRs who spend up to 10 years in organizations these days. You know why? Because after you fought for any and everybody, and you focus mostly on helping them perform, most times there's almost little or nothing for you to contribute or to connect to say that this is the growth you've made. And so when you're trying to advocate as to the reason and the need for increasing your salary, it feels like, what have you done? But the truth is, what you have done is seen in the outcome of the people they have, their succession planning, the reason why the operation is not suffering. But at the point when it comes to discussing salary or discussing increase for HR, management automatically become blind to all those things. And it is not them. It is just the system. It is what it is. So sometimes your growth might be neglected. So it means that as an HR person, some of the things you need to own, right, is time management. These are the key skills you need to own. Time management, task switching, the ability to take 20 minutes off every hour to improve yourself. So whilst you are dedicating 40 minutes of every hour to improve others, be selfish enough to take 20 minutes to improve yourself, because you can only become better, or you can only make them better when you yourself you are better. You can only make them better when you yourself you are what? You are better. You would experience a lot of emotional burnout. You know, I kept seeing this meme up, and I don't know if some of us saw it. You can just raise your hand if you saw it. Where they say that everybody dump their emotional problems on HR, but who does HR dump his emotional problem on? Can you just raise your hand if you've seen that meme before? Everyone's dumped their emotional problems of HR, but who does HR dump their emotional problems on? That is our reality, right? And this is where we need to begin to be selfish about our community. We need to be selfish about our community. HR mentorship is a space where we can come and pour out our burden, because this is how coaching works, right? Coaching works in this way. Someone comes to you, they dump their problem on you. You talk to them to feel better. What you've done is that you've exchanged the part of your energy for them. So your energy is depleting, right? If you don't find a place where you can come and add that energy or add that emotion, for which the only space which is safe is communities, HR communities of people who feel what you are feeling and who understand the place of confidentiality and secrecy. So everything you say there, they may make it as a joke or banter, but that's the only way you can feel better. You cannot talk to anybody in your organization. Why? Because you have bigger standards to uphold. I'm going to give a typical example of this emotional burnout and everything I've done so far. So this last week, or so rather 2 weeks ago, I was in a very funny dilemma in my organization. And what is the dilemma? There were issues that happened in the misinterpretation of certain policies, and the issue escalated. And so, in order to kill the issue, first, my boss is a foreigner. So for every meeting we always have the translator in the meeting. So in order to kill the issue, I decided to take certain steps and actions, right? And I mentioned it. And so I haven't done that. Immediately after the meeting, or maybe before the meeting, the translator went, after I had been able to quote and unquote diffuse the issue in-house, the translator went to portray me as someone who is corny or someone who doesn't have the employee's interest at heart, basically just poisoning the mind of the person, right? And the person started being reactive towards me. I started hearing recurrent statements as, I need people call integrity your core value and things like that. That is a typical example of what you would face on a daily basis as HR. But guess what? No matter how much you are receiving all those, the problem is you can never match the face of management. You can never sell out management. You have to find ways to kill that issue without exposing management to risks. So you are the one that is going to take the heat of everything. And that is what you have come to for. If you know that you can't keep having this, one or two things you need to know is that, number one, it means that you are not ready to grow. Because even if you avoid it in HR, when you grow and you step into management, you will still have to embody these kinds of things. Right. Now, what are the other things you will experience? You have to deal with a lot of legal and ethical minefields. And I've already expounded on that, what I was talking about, misconceptions. I'm not going to deal with it. So this is the last part I'm going to deal with, and I'm going to open the doors for questions. So you came into HR. Maybe you thought being in HR is going to put you at the spotlight. But let me tell you the truth. The only spotlight we have is LinkedIn. Yes, the only spotlight you have is LinkedIn. You know why? Because the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is just like social media, it's like Instagram, right? It's just a professional Instagram where you can portray the story in a sweet way that people will see it, help you, boost your insight, and be like, this guy knows what he's doing. But the truth is this, as long as you're in your organization, you are the person that doesn't know his job, you're the person that is being pushed up and down, you're the person that is just useless in that organization. Nobody sees your impact. You are going to constantly be insulted. You cannot take that emotions at heart. You are still supposed to bear that insult and still push for the progress of the organization. So the only place you have your fame is LinkedIn. The only place you have your fame is LinkedIn. Your wins would always be invisible. You must be ready to embody that. Another thing we mostly don't talk about, you work with a lot of terrible bosses, but it's the job you signed up for. Your job is not to pick your boss. Your job is to ensure employee relations. Your job is to ensure collaborations. Your job is to ensure that even when it seems like it is a minefield, you get people to work together. Lastly, you must learn to keep secrets. You must learn to know what should be divulged. You must learn to know what should go to the grave with you. You must learn to know the difference between the two. Most importantly, you must learn to know what you can control, what is beyond your control, and how to manage the process. When you come to firms to the fact that this is what you have signed up for, when you face burnout, when you feel like you are being overwhelmed, and you come back to those points to remind yourself, you find your strength in those things and you are able to forge on. So lastly, HR is not a job, it's a calling. If you're looking for a place where you gain influence and then build your financial money, right? It is not HR, except if you have a side hustle alongside HR. Maybe your finances can blow because in HR, giving data, right? Maybe the time you start earning tangible money in HR is after 10 years. If you don't have that patience, please leave HR. But the beautiful thing about technology and growth is the fact that it's not just about accumulating knowledge now. It is about putting those knowledge into practicality, solving problems, and being able to quantify your problems such that you can grow faster. That is the way you can grow in HR and in today's world. Convert the knowledge that you're having. It's not just about the certificates. Convert those knowledge and certificates to tangible solutions. And with that, scale up. Then you can build wealth. So HR is not for building wealth, it's for solving problems. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello. Birthday boy.
Hello.
Happy birthday to you.
Please,
Um,
can you
hello,
actually
call
mute
me.
the
Happy
person's-
birthday.
Okay, sorry about that. So growth or financial increase in any profession is not just by accumulating certificates like we think. It is about converting the knowledge we have into tangible solutions. Let me be realistic. So, for example, yes, I have the CIPM certifications and the likes, but one of the reasons why I came into HR and one of the reasons why I chose to come into HR is because I want to solve the problem of unemployment to the best of my ability. Now, because that problem is still in view and because I keep seeing that problem every day, I mean, do you know what it means to see 77 CVs and you can't even shortlist one for a first level interview? It is painful, right? Now, to do that, I decided to take a training on product management. I'm done with the training on the product management. I'm already working on building a product that can hopefully solve that problem. This is how every profession is. Growing happens by growth happens by solving problems, not by acquiring certification. So HR is not just a job, it's a calling, right? To succeed in HR, you need courage, you need compassion in the scope of emotional intelligence, not being emotional, learning to draw the line between empathy and emotions. It is about influencing systems, shaping culture, and driving trust. And with this, I say thank you so much for listening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And I would like to hand over to the host now. Thank you. Prof, sir, I'm done, sir. Over to you, sir. Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. As we are expecting Dr. Adeosun to continue with the program, I don't know if anyone has any question. If you have any question, you can raise up your hand. Do you have any question or comment for our facilitator tonight? Okay, fantastic. I can see Hama's hand is up. Okay, so fantastic presentation you have done today, Kembi Tomi. Can you please unmute for me and Hama? They have their hands up. Please unmute them so that they can continue with the program and ask their question.
they can go ahead and speak. They can go ahead and speak. Amma, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. But I think we have gone beyond that level of HR being seen as an enemy, or you see yourself as an enemy. With the kind of capacity building that we have gone through, and the kind of acceleration that HR has received, one shouldn't be thinking of all those enemy things and what, because it is how you groom your workers, is how they see you. The way you uplift their capacity building and make them to be performance driven, that they will understand that HR is no longer an enemy. It was in those days when people were doing personal management, that you are doing hiring and firing, that those kind of things come in. But today, some HR has advanced. So nobody should have any kind of mindset that you're coming in as an enemy, because it depends on how you groom the workforce, that they will see you, and not as an enemy, but as a performer and a high-valued worker. This is how it should be seen. So I think we should remove the issue of saying that HR should be seen as an enemy. Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much,
much, Hama,
for your contribution. I totally appreciate it. Thank you so very, very much. Your intonation sounds like you are not from Nigeria. Please, where are you coming from? So that I will start connecting you with other countries. Amma, are you there?
Yes, please.
Where are you connecting from?
You want to connect me to South Africa?
Wow,
South
wow,
Africa.
that's wonderful. That's beautiful. We've gone global, guys. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you so very much. And it's something that we'll take note of. Thank you so much. So Fumi, you can go ahead and unmute and speak. You can lower your hand also.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for a fantastic presentation. So a key takeaway for me from this session was when you mentioned that HR is not for the employer, neither is HR for the employee, but HR is for the system. I went further ahead to say that we have many one-man businesses, and in a case where I don't know how you actually put it, and that in case the employer is something that HR works for the employer. So I just want you to shed more light on um, how we can differentiate when HR is working for the system and when HR is working for the employer with vivid examples for further clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for me. So, especially when you're working with a one-man business, their line is always blurred. I'm going to be very honest. The line is always blurred. Now, what makes up a system? Let's start from that. People, processes, and what's the third one? Now, products or services. Now, products or services are what we sell, right? People are the people that make up the system. But what are processes? Processes are made up of standards, they're made up of policies. Now, every system is expected to have policies, right? Step-by-step processes that guides them as to how they should get certain tasks done. Those policies were created either out of trial and error of observing the business evolve, right? And that is the reason why those policies were put in place. Hence, the reason why the policies and bringing people into compliance with the policies is our major role as HR. Now, this is where we need to also be careful. We need to also know that as an HR person, our job is not just to hold on to the policies tightly, but we should be flexible enough to observe precedents, to observe trends, right, in the application of the policies. Meaning that even if the policy says A, because of our exposure to what law looks like, that a word can have multiple interpretation, we need to understand when to adjust and be flexible. What do I mean? So, for example, there is an issue on ground, right? Maybe there's an issue of nothing is coming to my head, but an issue happens, or someone should come late, for example, and the penalty for coming late is 1,000 naira, for example. That is in the policy, right? What the policy just put there is the penalty. Where do you come in as HR? First of all, before going ahead to just mete out the penalty, understand the reason behind it. The policy is the system that has been put in place, right? Understand the reason behind it. What is the reason behind this person coming late? Is this something beyond the person's control? Or was it something that the person could have avoided? Right. This is the places where we begin to draw certain lines to ensure that we are for the system, not necessarily for the employer or for the employee. Right. And part of what I said is that in cases, because we have a lot of one-man business, in cases where we have one-man businesses, most times that one man ends up being the system himself until he has grown to a point where he can separate himself from the business. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. I just want to make an input to the question our sister just put in and the clarification you made. And my contribution will be from the public sector perspective. You know, we have union, that is staff union, various unions from the academy. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And we have the management. The union will always say that they are striving to protect the welfare of the people, as well as the management. But most times there is a conflict between this union and the management, whereby the union will always strive and present itself as if like they have the interest of the staff more than the management. So where the system, where HR should be taken as a system in this scenario is that both the union and the management should view the entire system as working to achieve a common goal. That is, they should always come to synergize. They should always have a concerted effort to achieving a common goal, not to see themselves as antagonizing one another to achieve or to project or portray themselves as one having the interest of staff more than the other. So, and this has happened from my own experience in several institutions, public institutions that I have heard and have witnessed. So that is where HR should be taken as a system. So if it is viewed as a system, whether you are from the union side or the management side, the goal is for organizational success. You see, like there is a particular incident that happened recently in a particular higher educational institution. There was a kind of clash between management and union. And during examination of student examination, booklets were torn because the union insisted that the examination should not hold, while the management wanted the exam to hold. Now, if where HR should come in, a HR expert here should come in, is to protect that image that was, dented, to avoid such occurrence, because that affects both the management as well as the union, the incident that happened. And it was highly preventable incident. So this is where I think this particular concept can be used to explain where HR should be taken for system, instead of being seen as either for management or for the staff alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your contribution, sir. Thank you very, very much. So I totally agree with what he said. It was really on point. And one of the things we also need to understand as HR is that we also need to understand the perspective where both parties are coming from. For management, all they are looking, majority of the things they are looking out for is company survival, profitability, and risk reduction. From employees, the majority of what we are looking out for is the fact that we are working for the purpose of being able to pay our bills, being able to stand with our head high in society, right? So that we can talk amongst our peers to say that yes, we can meet up with the society standard. Now, in every issue, the job of HR is to understand where both parties are coming from and help both parties see each other's view and look for a common ground. So I think that explains everything in summary and in a nutshell. There's a question I can see here that is almost lost in the chat. The name here says SD. It says, what do you do when your boss does not honor you, majorly because of what other managers have said to remain in their good books? Okay. So it is one of the realities that you have to work with as an HR. The fact that you'd always been misunderstood, you'd always been thrown under the bus, right? Everyone would use you for their political gain. However, one of the things you also need to know is the fact that we are transitioning in HR, right? Our job, yes, I mentioned that when the employer is the system, you have to please the employer because your job is to please and satisfy the system. Now, our job, but of course, in an ethical way and in line with the standards that we've been given. Now, our job as HR in this case is that we need to learn to separate our emotions. It's going to be a difficult and a tough job, trust me. But we need to learn to separate our emotions from the work, right? What does work say these days? What does work use to make decisions? Data, right? Begin to come to a point where for every conversations you have, they are either documented or they are recorded, right? Because we live in a very funny world. Have evidences for every conversation to protect not just yourself, but also the system. And then ensure that you have data and you are doing every single thing you do within the confines of the policies, such that no matter how much they speak, when the source is traced, it is obvious that you are working and doing your job. Something about eye service is the fact that along the line, over time, it fizzles out because most eye service comes from the place of emotion and not with data. So that is what I'm just going to say. Stay within the confines of your job, which is policies, document everything and make sure there are evidences for everything you do, and just work within the confines of the policies that you've been given to uphold. I don't know if I answered that question, so you can just drop in the comment section if I answered that question. And I don't know if there are any other questions. I would like to hand over to the team that is coordinating the event.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Tommy,
sir.
for yet another excellent world-class, well-delivered, insightful session. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's unmute and say thank you to our facilitator for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for the
Thank you,
presentation.
sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the privilege. Thank you so much, sir.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, Doctor.
Good night, sir.
Good night, sir.
Thanks, sir.